delays, I think. Either that or I've got a delay.
One of the two things work. All right. So hopefully everybody can hear me back there. I have been accused, and I am a mover. I like to move around. I probably talk a little too much and intimidate the audience when I get next to you. My wife tells me that for what I lack in intelligence, I make up in volume, so mics don't do very well with me. I like to move around and get to know the audience and help people that are falling asleep. I like to nudge you a little bit and keep you going. That is my career, where I call him Ron. Where did you go?
I'm back.
Oh, you're hiding back in the back. I've known him as Colonel for most of our relationship, but we've known each other for a very, very long time. And he was actually very significantly a mentor of mine as I went into this field of emergency management back in 1996. In fact, I actually worked for him here in Tampa, Salvation Army in 1995. And worked here, working down at the Salvation Army Area Command in Tampa. And then I left and went into disaster. I started, my first disaster was in the Florida Everglades, if you guys have been around Florida for a while, to the 1996 Value Jet crash in the Florida Everglades. That was my indoctrination into disaster work with the Salvation Army and helping communities and responders after times of disaster. Since that time, you heard a little bit, I've been bounced around the world. I've gone to many disasters, both domestically, internationally. I've led a lot of training with government interaction with nonprofits, and then helping with personal preparedness. I live in Pasco County. I am in the Land O'Lakes community, and I share that with you. How honored I am to be here with you, because I haven't even been invited to speak in my own community, because none of them really know what I am. I have an HOA that I'm probably one of the guys that everybody tries to mute on our Facebook page. But every time that there's a storm, everybody reaches out to me and is like, what should we be doing? What's happening in the community? I'm like, you know what? We could beat this all by just having to come speak at Clubhouse. But we haven't had that opportunity. So I'm glad to be here. I would like to run through a lot of the slides of things that I have, because a lot of you have different areas that you probably will want to know about. And I'm going to give you some tools, some specific tools at the end. If you are one who likes to take lots of notes so you have everything that I speak, more power to you, write it down. But what I'm also going to offer is at the end, this PowerPoint I'm going to put into a PDF, so you could bring it up on your phone, and you can have access to everything that I'm providing, including the links to important resources that I think will probably be helpful for you. Some of you will have some very specific questions, and I might not be able to get to all of them, but I don't have any plans except for to go dinner with my friend later tonight, so I'm happy to stick around and ask questions afterwards if that's helpful. That being said, I'll try to keep moving forward and try to keep you awake as I go through the presentation. I came at this with a little bit of a perspective from an HOA. So you all are a member of the HOA by being a resident here in this community. That is important because I want to talk to you, if you will, as a team. Because as a community, I'm going to give you this is my end speech, but it's also my beginning. If government has HOAs around the community, or churches, or community-based organizations, I think someone once called them the critter clubs, the moose, the lions, the rotary, if all of those clubs took time to build resilience by checking on each other and their members, it would leave a very small gap of people that are left out of the system because everybody's checking on each other. And as an HOA, you have a very powerful role in Hillsborough County to identifying who is hurting in this community, especially because you are very vulnerable in this community. Wonderful community, wind is not your problem in this community. Water is your problem. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to know now that you've moved in and you're planted here really well. Now I want to hit you with the other part of the story about being here and some of the things you need to at least be aware of. But first of all, and I know it looks really small now, it's up there. I do have a great dance floor. If you'd like to come up and dance, do a routine. I break dance, might be entertaining, but it might be hard to see the screen because it's way up there. So I'll try to talk through it each of the slides that we have. Let me get up here. I won't have to go back and forth, I promise, because I'll be able to click it. One of the things I need you to make sure, the very basic topic that we need to make sure you understand is evacuation zone. I love the community. You have friends and family around the community who may actually lean upon you in times of disaster. I want to make sure that we understand that people who have older homes or are in mobile homes are way more vulnerable than you are because you live in a post-Hurricane Andrew code enforcement that makes your house pretty darn resilient to Florida hurricanes. Not totally, you're not totally protected, but for the most part, if the water doesn't rise on your home, most Florida homes in the building codes that we have may get water, may have damage, may have roof, may have some water leakage coming in. But for the most part, our building codes are strong enough that you have a safe place to be if the water's not going to rise. But you do live in an evacuation zone. Those who are in mobile homes, there isn't a safe place to be in your mobile home in a time of hurricane. They need to evacuate. And then the last thing is to talk, we want to talk a little bit about the access control things. The things that you rely on that are based on electricity for your home, especially as a community. How many of you are actually on the HOA board leadership team? Anybody in here? I'm not going to get you in trouble. I don't want you, nobody throw anything. That's not what that was for. Sorry. The reason I say that is because as a community, we need to be aware of those things that might be limiting factors for the community because that's all going to impact us. One of those things is access control of the gates and stuff like that. And I'm going to talk about some of those things that we just want to consider. Why? Because you don't have the power to do them, but you need to be planning for some of the things that are restricted in the community. So when your gate goes down and they're using voice over IP, if you don't know that terminology, relying on computers to give you phone links, when the computers go down, so do the phones. And most of our houses, guess what? We all rely on computers or power to run our phones. So I'm going to throw one question out before I move forward. We're going to talk about each of these things, but I'm going to throw one question out. How many of you have moved to the community within the last 10 years? Whew. Okay. How many of you were here for the Debbie, Milton, there was a middle one in there somewhere. Helene flooding. You were here for that time. That's good. I'm good because you are the ones who will have experienced some of that flood rise, the water that starts rising, and you guys did not get what was expected. Actually, Sarasota got what was worse. Sarasota, Ron and I were down in Sarasota during the recovery to that, and if you aren't fearful, if you think everything's wonderful, ask people in Sarasota who didn't take consideration of the rising water. Ask them how they had to deal with it after the fact, because it was very bad, even though a major hurricane did not hit them. Debbie was not a major hurricane, right? But the flood that came because of Debbie devastated Sarasota County. And we can talk about that in a little bit too. All right. So for me, we got to look at, as a community, some of the timelines that are very important for us. If you aren't reaching out as a community to find out what weather is coming, when you see the Weather Channel and Jim Cantori going 24/7 on TV about a hurricane coming up the west coast of Florida, you probably ought to turn on the TV and start paying attention to what's going on. As a HOA and the board, and I know that you have a management company that helps to take care of facilities and all that stuff, that should start raising your awareness a little bit when you hear them say, okay, pool's closed, putting away the furniture, this thing's coming, we're going to have an impact. That should mean something to you. What should that say? Give me something that you would say, if they start putting their furniture up, what should you be doing? The same stuff. This isn't rocket science, I just want to make sure you know it's not that hard. But you should be doing the same stuff. And if you're putting that stuff up, then it should start triggering some other things for you as well. Should I be putting hurricane shutters up? Should I be considering some of the things that I've taken as precaution, like should I be going to get fuel? Should I wait till 5 hours before the storm is going to hit and choose that's when I'm going to go get fuel? Probably not, because everybody's already taken all the fuel by that point, right? So we look at a timeline, and I know you can't see all of this, but we put together a little bit of a timeline for how you can consider before the season begins, you should already have your plans ready. So if you're not ready for it as we get done, that's okay. You got a little bit of time left because there's nothing coming at us right now. It's all going to Mississippi with Bertha, right? But the first and foremost thing that you should be doing is preparing before the storm comes. And then when it does start looking like it's coming, you start following those forecasts and see how it's going to impact your community. And then with 72 to 48 hours, you start looking at what are the things that can happen to my property that may be vulnerable. I live in Land O'Lakes, Florida, okay? I remember closing on my house in 2013, and my realtor looked at me and said, "Good news, Kevin, you're not in a flood zone." And I looked at her and I went, "We're on a swamp. Our backyard is on conservation in a swamp." She said, "Yeah, but we raised your house. The whole community is raised, so you're not in a flood zone." As a former FEMA administrator that was a good friend of mine said, if you live in a place that rains, you are vulnerable to a flood. 30 inches of rain in Land O'Lakes, Florida, even though I'm not mandated to have flood insurance, is going to flood my house. Not because the flood insurance was bad, it's because I chose to live on a swamp. I shouldn't be shocked. There are things that you should know about having a pool in your backyard. If you have your own access to your pool, or if you are on a retention pond, you should be able to look out there and start monitoring. That water's coming up awfully fast right now. They didn't say it was going to rain hard, but it's raining hard, and we've already had 20 inches of rain. That's probably a sign that we have something bad coming. What are the things that you and the community are going to do to either have access to sandbags if you need them? Maybe many of you don't because you're raised up high, you're a nice community. I promise that's not me. And then within 24 hours, you should be locked in before that storm hits. You should not be going out trying to get prepared then, wait to go to Home Depot to go get some additional stuff. You should already have that stuff. You should be hunkering down, especially here in Florida, if you haven't been told to evacuate. Then after that, while you are sitting down, you're watching emergency management, you're watching the Weather Channel, you're tuning in to local emergency radio, you're listening to those things that are telling you what officially should be done. Now, I like Facebook, okay? I'm a Facebook guy. We are the Facebook generation, right? We like to put grandkid pictures out there. But it's not your best source of information for what's happening in the storm. Unless you're looking at Hillsborough County Emergency Management page for critical information. And if you're really a weather geek like I am, the National Weather Service, which actually is just around the corner in Ruskin, is very good. I know the team very well. They're very good at putting critical information out. It's not sexy. It's not really fun to read some of their stuff because they're a bunch of meteorologists. They're all nerds. They don't do it to make it sexy, but they give very good information, and you can always access that for the same information that they're giving to emergency management. But when it comes to evacuations, that all comes from the Office of Emergency Management in consultation with the National Weather Service. So that's during the storm. You should be looking out. I'm not going to go into dramatizing everything, but I do want you to think of something real quick. Even if they tell you you aren't evacuating, okay? You still have to be paying attention to what is actually happening when that storm is coming in. In 2004, I was the state director for the Salvation Army for all disaster relief around the Florida, okay? Hurricane Charlie started bearing into Florida, and it was dead on Tampa Bay. And I will tell you, we probably wouldn't have recovered, we wouldn't be recovered now from the damage that Hurricane Charlie would have brought to Tampa Bay. I don't think this community would be built if Charlie had done what it was supposed to do. So I, in my great wisdom, I know everything, right? I'm very smart. I tell myself that every morning. I told my wife and my son to evacuate from Pasco County and go to Orlando, Florida. Some of you must have been around during that. Because in Charlie, it did this. Turned right-hand turn, went into Charlotte County, went over, and my wife and son walked out in the middle of the hurricane eye and went right over the property that they had evacuated to. And what I'm saying to you is, if I had turned off the TV and not paid attention, I would have assumed it was coming directly to where I was. But weather doesn't follow the map that they tell you. The people that tell you what's happening is based upon forecasts and models and all of that kind of stuff. So it is very important that while you're playing cards during the storm, that somebody's also listening to whether the storm changed paths or not. Okay? So that's during the event. And then afterwards, I'm just going to, as I hit up there, I'm going to give you this so you can look at it and read it. And when you're not sleeping at night, it'll help you go back to sleep. But you can read this. The number one thing I want you to think about as a team, as a community, is to check on each other. If you are okay, you check on that neighbor. I don't care if you don't like that neighbor. You still should be checking on them. And that should also say to you, if you are not well, is to turn to your neighbor for help. Now, if all of you did that in this community and communicated with your HOA and the management company, you have a very strong voice within Hillsborough County Emergency Management to call their hotline and say, we have 50 homes that have been severely damaged. We need support. You can do that. As the board, as the management company, who I don't think anybody from the management company is in the room, they have access to emergency management to say, this part of our community has been seriously impacted, we need help. But you also have the capability of saying, we have 12 homes in our community significantly impacted, but we have rallied, we are taking care of those 12 homes. If you need to prioritize somewhere else, just know send your inspectors to see what's happening here, but we got them. I want to empower you that that's the most powerful thing you can do as a community to each other, especially when it's those who can't take care of themselves because of some other reason in the community. That's one of the things I want to make sure that that I lean in a lot as we talk about this. So I'm going to give you the links if you don't already have this. There's two things to help you to know what your zone is. The emergency management is going to call out some letters. I think I have A, B, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay? That's the kind of the model for how you know what your flood zone is. Now I'm going to ask you a question real quick. How many of you know the difference between your flood zone and your evacuation zone? Do you know that they're two different things? If you do not, write down, put it in your phone, do whatever you know. I need to know the difference between my flood zone and my evacuation zone. I'm going to tell you real quick what it is, but you need to understand this. Your flood zone is the likelihood that your home is going to be flooded by rising water pouring down, or a river or streams, or ultimately in Florida, it's water coming up on your property. That is your flood zone. Very important for your insurance. You should all know what that is, because when you sign your documents moving in, you should know, your insurance tells whether you owe money on your home for flood insurance or not. Okay? I'm going to tell you, if you don't have flood insurance, you need to get flood insurance. I know that's easy if, I don't have them, I don't make that calculation very easily because it's money, right? But if you don't have flood insurance, you live in a place where you need flood insurance, both from water coming down and water coming in. Flood zone is you're likely to have flood come into your home based upon water coming down. Evacuation zone is based on the likelihood that water is going to come into your property because of tidal surge, storm surge, based on the movement of water from either a storm or some other event. Okay? So when they calculate what category you are in, very vulnerable area in Florida, when they calculate that, they do it based on the opportunity for water to build up in Tampa Bay, and basically like a big bathtub is when the water starts splashing to the edge, is the likelihood that that's going to come out the edge and into your properties. Okay? All of this is very easy to know. Both of the answers, all you have to go is to know your zone. You can go to floridadisaster.org, and you can go to, in Hillsborough County, it's called HEAT, H-E-A-T. I think I wrote it up here. Hillsborough County HEAT, where you can put in your address and it'll tell you exactly what your evacuation zone is and your flood zone. Okay? Anybody need any more clarity on that? It is very important for you to know it should be something that's always in the back of your head. When you are listening to emergency management, I've told you to listen to them, but when you're listening for them to say, flood zone A, gotta get out. The reason they do that, and let me tell you, they do not do it without heavy concern for you to say, we don't want to make them move unless we really think it's likely that water's going to come into their properties. I promise you, because I've been in the meetings where they talk and make those decisions, they get very worried that they have to tell you that you have to leave as a mandatory evacuation. What's important is that you and everybody in this community knows what your vulnerability is, because you're probably in an A or an AB. Do you know? Ron, you're A? Is everybody A? Do you all know that? Okay, guys, that's big. Okay? You need to know that. Now, the reason you're vulnerable, and I talk about the bathtub model, if you will, but again, if you're a weather geek, watch emergency management and watch Weather Channel enough, you'll be there with me, it's all about how the wind moves as the storm approaches Tampa Bay and then passes Tampa Bay. And what happens is the mouth of Tampa Bay becomes just like a river of water that pours in through the mouth of Tampa Bay. The good news is for Tampa Bay is when it comes in, it gets to spread out. The bad news is you're in one of those areas that it spreads out and it can't go anywhere else. So you need to be paying attention, and those do come when a storm is going just north of Tampa Bay or directly into Tampa Bay. Those are big deals. And do not be mad at emergency management if it turns and goes like Charlie did and goes to Port Charlotte, and you get mad because, well, they said it was going to flood. It actually went the other way. Okay, good. Pray and give thanks for that day when that happens. Because in Hurricane Charlie, there were people in Tampa Bay who said they saw further out into Tampa Bay than they've ever seen before, because the water got sucked out of Tampa Bay and the water went into Fort Myers and into the Port Charlotte area. Okay, I want to make sure you understand that. That's probably the biggest takeaway for me, is to know your zone. The second thing is to talk about your communication strategy. Now, I'm talking as a community is how you're going to communicate when power's down. Facebook goes away in most cases because you have routers. Actually, the internet works fine, but you all have, do you all have Spectrum as a community? Who's your Spectrum provider? All of you, huh? Frontier, so okay. So you all have some little internet box in your house that will go down unless you have some battery backup on it or you have a generator. Okay, we'll talk about that as well. The internet's fine to your house, but if you go out of power, there's nothing they can do because you are based on that. You are based waiting for your router to give you a signal. So Facebook's down, your information's out. Radio becomes important again. Most of us grew up with radio. We're used to being able to turn on the radio, the AM, the FM, whatever that may be. Kids don't do that at all anymore. There is no radio for them. They turn in, plug in the iPhone and everything else. But for us, we would remember that we can go turn on our radio if we still have one. I would encourage you to remember that that old radio that is in your house does have extreme value to you still. Tell your kids this, by the way. Yes, I need that radio. I can't get rid of it because it'll work and y'all will be waiting on your iPhones that all will be without power. And that's how you will get some of your most critical information is by radio. But as a community, how do we communicate to each other that we are either well or not well? And how do we get that information out to everybody else? That's very important. Now for me, still makes Facebook and all those places that you go for your information that more important. But when you know you don't have power, you've got to find some alternative to coming to the clubhouse to say we will distribute information as a community and resources to help people that are impacted by the event. I'm giving you, I can tell I'm kind of glazed, some of you are glazing over at me, and I apologize, because I want to make sure that you all know where you go to get the information, and whether we do this as a conversation now or in a few minutes, is how the community is going to post information about the wellness of the community is going to be important for y'all to have future discussions either with the HOA and the management company. I will tell you, my management company in my HOA, the management company that supports us, put out this information to my community after one of the storms, and it really ticked me off. So I made sure to say, before you put that stuff out, let's at least talk about it to make sure it's the right information. Because the last thing we want to do is get the wrong information out after the event. The key for me here is if communication goes down in the community, electricity is out, that you have a strategy for communicating with each other, whether it's door to door, and whether or not you put some teams together to go and check on each other, it's something you should be discussing before the event occurs. Okay? I just think that's important. We want to keep the messages simple that we are spreading out there from a community to everyone in the community. We don't have to give them the whole weather story. We don't have to give them everything. We just have to say, the clubhouse will be closed. We have damage, we've secured damage. Don't leave your homes because there's power lines down throughout the whole community, or there's infrastructure problems. Keep the messages simple to direct so people don't get lost in the details during a disaster. All right, how many of you have in your possession, at home, not in your possession, have at home some sort of disaster kit for your family? Okay? Okay. What is your number one thing that you guys who raised your hand that you have in your disaster kit?
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper, awesome, great. Water, great.
Solar charger.
Solar charger, that's a great.
Insurance papers.
And insurance papers, very good.
First aid kit.
A first aid kit.
Flashlight.
Flashlights, good. What's that?
And food.
And food, good.
Bottle of
Okay, so when I said bottle of booze, he won't even know what's going on in the disaster, but he will be fine. I'm with him. So my question is, I probably need to be more specific. I probably should have said, good, that's what you need for your home, right? What happens when you leave your home? What are you taking with you out when you leave your home? Same kit? Or do you have, that's medication. Do you have two separate concepts of what my kit looks like? What my preparedness looks like? So I'm not telling you to just have all these kits all over your house, but you need to know, what do I need to be prepared inside my house? Where I'm not evacuating, we are staying put, but we may be lost with power. Here's what my kit looks like. Number two is, when I have to go somewhere else. What does my kit look like when I have to evacuate? Number one, medication, right? Making sure you have medication, you take it when you leave the house. Because even if you go to a hurricane shelter that has air conditioning and all that kind of stuff, if you don't have access to your medication, you're in trouble. We talked about some concepts here. I'm just going to throw these out there for things that you need to be aware of. And I don't know if any of it shocks you. Most of us know this is all over the internet. You can find all kinds of reasonable methods or conversations about how much water you should have. If you drink 5 gallons of water every day anyway, then probably the statement of me saying a gallon of water per individual, you're going to be like, I drink that in the morning. The point is, what you need is to plan for what is a necessity, even if your diet already goes way over that. The estimate is that you need 1 gallon of water per person and pet per day. If you don't plan for that pet, and you end up having to give your water to the pet, somebody's going to have to do without. And many times, it's the least kid that you like. And I understand that. Food is non-perishable. Try to look for things that can be in your pantry that is to your normal diet. If you wait for government to help you, or you had somebody tell you that MREs are the things you should store, I do want to know, anybody that's in the military can tell you, there are other problems that come with those type of meals, so you should be concerned about the type of meals you're putting into your plan, especially if you put them in a to-go kit, and they have all these great preservatives in it. They're meant for life-sustaining, not sustained feeding. They're meant to get you through, not because it's not going to go through, if that makes sense to you. And if you're in the military, that will also make sense. How many of you, I love this one because usually a lot of people get choked up on this one, is how many of you actually have a manual can opener? This is a generational thing. Believe it or not, there are large numbers of crowds that we do these preparedness conversations with their like, I guess I never thought of that. We have, ours is battery operated. I'm like, go ahead, at least you have that. You probably should have a manual can opener so you can access food that is in your pantry when you have an electric can opener. I have this model we talk about. It's called Dine in the Dark. Okay, and I tell people, if you are so good that you already have your disaster kit. Now I know you guys are in a retirement community. You don't have kids running around the house. It's not as big of a deal for you to worry about having all these kids around. However, it's probably good for you and your people who are in your house with you to every now and then see what that food's like that you're saying you're going to live off of for 3 or 4 days. Okay? If you had bought because of some great radio station that told you to have 320 meals in these buckets that they give you as dehydrated food, try it sometime. It might be okay, but you need to know before you get into the situation that you hate that stuff and you can't swallow it. Probably good for you to take an opportunity, and I tell people to do this after the hurricane season, but you can do it anytime through the year, is take that food that you think is going to be what you're going to use for the disaster and try it. Turn your power off and see what you actually need to get through a power shutoff in Florida. Okay? Because I'm going to come to power in a minute. Obviously, all your medical stuff. Not just your bottles of medication, but a list of what medications you take. Now, I take about 7 pills in the morning because I have all kinds of things that I need to make sure that some of them are vitamins and other stuff that I take and my statin and all that kind of stuff. But I take 7 pills in the morning. Tell me to spell them. Because I can't spell them. I can tell you what they are, I think, and I'll probably mispronounce them. Tell me how many milligrams they are and ensure that you have that written down somewhere so you can take it to a pharmacy. You can take it somewhere if you run out of those while you've been displaced from your home. Okay? Make sure that you have that in your package. If you are medically dependent on electricity, and medically dependent includes many people who are on CPAP machines, my friend and I were talking about this a few minutes ago, you need to make sure you're considering those things that you rely on for electricity daily to ensure that you have access to them, or you have registered with the county to say, I am medically dependent on electricity. They call it a special needs registry, and Hillsborough County has it, and you should sign up for it. Okay? If you are medically dependent, whether that means you're diabetic because you have to keep your insulin cold, whether it means that you are on a CPAP machine, or you have, what are some other things that are medically dependent? Oxygen that you have to have. You should register with the medical special needs registry. Now let me tell you, being on a government side, I do a lot of counseling with government. It is a very big place. It's actually required by Florida statute for every county to have a special needs or medical needs registry for every person. And when they know that a threat is coming to your area, they will go down that list and call them. And if those people are afraid of losing power or have already lost power, they will actually provide transportation to come and get those people to take them to a medical needs shelter where they will have power and access to make sure that they have their life-sustaining needs. They're not taking you to a luxury hotel, but they're going to take you somewhere where there is power so that you can sustain life. Does that make sense? Does anybody have a question about that? Because that's a very important point. You don't have to answer this question because I don't need everybody to raise your hand on this one. If you have those medical needs, does everybody know how to access that by the special needs registry in county? Shaking your head, yes, we know how to do that, it's fine. No, I encourage you to go to the Hillsborough County Emergency Management website. It's actually not one of the links that I've given you. I'll consider maybe putting it in there before I fix the PDF. The special needs registry for Hillsborough County. You need to write that down and you need to go register for it, okay? And that it doesn't require you to do anything. There's no Gestapo that comes out because you're medically needs. It is their way of reaching out to make sure you're okay because of loss of power.
My husband was on in-home dialysis,
Yes.
and a generator could not hook up to that because there was a deviation and it would shut it off anyway. So we
Very
had no
good.
place to go.
Okay. And if you were on that registry, go ahead.
They'd have to have a place that had consistent electricity.
And did they find a place for you or did they yourself?
No, we didn't do that. We went to
Okay,
a
they will.
hotel that had it, and then the
Okay.
hotel went down and flooded.
So a good example is that and if you are medically dependent for a, not a transfusion, what did you say? Dialysis. For dialysis, those machines often require constant electricity, not the kind that a generator gives. It surges and stuff, and it can ruin the machine, but it also can stop you from being able to go through your dialysis. That is important, that if you are medically dependent, and it's great that you have a generator, but you need to know if your machine or your device will run off of that generator, okay? All of those questions should be answered now before you get into the situation where you have to use it. And I will tell you, in your case specifically, when you mentioned it, is the county would have ensured that you got to a facility where they would have had power. They do that. You tell me they do.
Really good generator. One that
Well, they will. They have a medical needs shelter that can supply that. And Hillsborough County is one of the counties in the state that does a very good job at their medical needs registry. I know it because I know the folks that work with it. Okay? So that's important for all of you, not just this example, and I'm thankful for sharing that, because it's not one of the things that I think about when people think about having a generator on their house. They think that they're okay. Make sure you already know how those devices are with generator electricity. Okay, y'all already talked about it. It was cool because somebody dropped it and said, make sure you have your insurance information. Here's the thing I want to tell you. You are vulnerable for floods, number one, from storm surge, okay? Go home today. You're not really going to do this, but find out some time to do it. But I'm going to make it sound like you have to do it today. Go take pictures of everything in your house, okay? As it is right now, take a picture. And 6 months from now, do it again. Keep an updated catalog, even if it's just pictures. Because anybody, an insurance agent, don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. Because I already made that mistake once we talked about the HOA. I don't want to do that again. I just went through a lightning strike. A lightning strike that took out half of the stupid breakers in my panel, not just blew them, blew the circuitry out of them. So I had to deal with an insurance agent just from a lightning strike. This was 2 months ago, okay? And I'm so sorry. I think it maybe the battery's going in. Or maybe it's, is that what it is? Oh, all right, don't stand there. Okay, stop moving around is what it said. Okay. It was torture talking to my insurance agent about, well, we'll send an inspector out to come and prove that your outlets were hit by electricity. I'm like, I don't have power in my house. Isn't that enough evidence for you to say I had a lightning strike? They wanted to see each of the breakers that they were melted and dysfunctional before I could have them replaced. In the case of a flood, they're going to want pictures of everything in your house to say what it looked like before the storm. Because they're going to want to say, you've had that TV for 10 years. Obviously, it was in bad condition. They're going to want to talk you out of the value of your TV. You need to have an image of it that says, it may have been 50 years old, but it was in great condition in my house. And you discrediting the value that had in my house doesn't capture on this image that says what the value of that TV was. You need it for bargaining when insurance companies are trying to save their butts after a big hurricane hits Florida, okay? So I'm telling you, go take pictures of everything in your house. Keep those photos somewhere you know how to access them, and all of the other documents that you have for insurance and all that kind of stuff that you probably have online. Make sure you have it somewhere you can access it if you have to leave your home because it is damaged. Everybody good with that? Anybody have heartburn, and is anybody just ready for me to be done? If anybody says yes. There's a room back in the there. Okay, so flashlights, batteries, that's all the stuff we all know, and I talked about that weather radio. I don't care if you don't have a weather radio. Some of you probably have had them in the past, and like, that stupid thing goes off all the time in the middle of the summer because we have lightning threat, a severe storm. Yeah, we got a severe storm every day in Tampa, so it gets annoying. I want you to have one, a weather radio in your house, but I understand if you don't. At least have access to a radio where they can broadcast emergency messaging when they need to. I have a weather app, but if I lose internet connection, I'm not gonna have that weather app access to it if my internet goes down and I'm relying on cell tower. I use my phone for everything for that purpose. I muted my weather alerts on it because it gave me so many tornado alerts. That's not real smart on my part, but I also am very active in that app to watching it when I know there are storms. So just make sure you have access to that information. It's very important. And then the last thing is to talk about, and I love these kits that are going to be given away tonight with raffle, or this afternoon with raffle, because they have the stuff in here like wipes, hygiene supplies. Make sure you have the things that you need, especially if you leave your house. You already have a place to put it. You already have the stuff that goes in that bag, and you can take it with you, and you don't become dependent on somebody else to have to help you because you didn't take it with you. The last thing I will say is, since you are Cat A, or not Cat A, since you are in Zone A for evacuation, plan for your evacuation. Don't plan for not evacuating. You may not evacuate, but at least plan and have it for when you need to evacuate. In Florida, the majority of residents who have had a house since 1994, when the building codes went in, most houses in Florida are safe from wind. From wind. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but because of the building codes, they're safe. Okay? Which means you don't have to evacuate to Maine for a hurricane. You may have to go in and find a partner, somebody that lives inside, and stay with them. You may have to go to a hotel. That hotel can be 30 miles away. It doesn't have to be in Maine. Okay? And I'm telling you this because there is nothing worse. How many of you were here in 2018 when Hurricane Irma hit? Did any of you get stuck in the traffic? We almost had a catastrophe with Hurricane Irma because we had people stuck on the road because gas ran out. Everybody waited to evacuate to the last minute, and they were all on their way out of state. They didn't have to, but they did because none of them had plans. They just said, we gotta go way far away. In Florida, you find a place that is safe to be inland or away, but you don't have to go all the way to Georgia to do it. Does that make sense? I say that because my heart breaks when I hear people getting off the interstate, going to a shelter in Live Oak, Florida, that is a church gymnasium, a church fellowship hall. People having to get off the interstate because there's nowhere else to go. The hotels are blocked, and yet there are homes all throughout Florida that would have been safe for them to evacuate to. You are very vulnerable to that evacuation, so you need to have a plan. Family, friends, or other houses that you can go to, hotels, that is a good recommendation. Okay? Sorry. Any questions about that? Okay, good. Okay, I talked about this already. I recommend, do you all have in the community kind of a community team that's going to check on each other and check on the community? Okay. I encourage you as a community, after this meeting, don't mandate and go, it's your fault, we don't have a community check on each other. No. Let's be proactive in saying, guys, I'm a gardener. I love my yard. I'm one of the few people that actually like St. Augustine grass in Florida that keeps it going. And I like to go around my community to check on it to make sure there isn't a little bare spot. I'm just kidding, I'm not that bad. But I do like nice yards. And I'm willing to go help out my community to help them if there's something wrong in their yards. And I'm also willing to go around to check after a storm to make sure my neighbors are okay and to make sure, I didn't even move this time, to make sure that the gate is open, that a tree hasn't fallen on the clubhouse, or a tree hasn't blocked people leaving the community. We should have a team here in this community, and multiple teams, to be able to go and do that assessment and then share that information out to the community. Hey, don't go out gate number so-and-so, there's a tree in front of it, give us some time to clear that tree. And most importantly, and we're going to get to this in just a second, if there are power lines down in the community, you do not drive over them and you do not touch them until an emergency responder has made that and said that is a dead power line. The emergency responder has said that's a dead power line. We will be back to move it, but it is safe to go across. Don't assume it is. And if you don't heed that warning, go on YouTube tonight when you're falling asleep and look at people driving over power lines. Rubber tires don't always insulate the car on power lines that are in water, okay? As a community, you can communicate that, especially even blocking where you see power lines or, and I know you're probably an underground line community, that's good, but there are other cases within the community you need to be aware of to make sure it's safe for others. If you're an able-bodied person and want to be a part of that team, the HOA president, I don't really know that, would like to hear from you, okay? I don't really know that that's the case, but we ought to try. All right. I told you about the special needs assistance. I got a little ahead of myself. I'm excited about it. Hillsborough County has that. You should look at it. Actually, a good friend of ours, Jerry Stickney, runs the medical needs transportation unit, where he does moves all the buses and all the resources to go out to pick up people on that special needs register. He has done it, and he is very good at making sure that that happens. And lastly, I said about checking on your neighbor. I would love to know, hey, we go back to kindergarten here. Have a buddy system, okay? Check on your neighbors. Make sure you're checking on each other through this, and I've hit that quite a bit here. All right. So let's talk about generators for a minute. How many of you have a generator, a whole house generator on your place? Okay, you can. Well, that narrowed that down. How many of you have a generator to help power your house?
Not all of it.
Okay, not all of it, that's right. So, remember my dining in the dark? Do you remember my dining in the dark scenario? Try this. For those who have a generator, I recommend this, is, if you haven't already done it, but even if you have, let's try it again. Use your generator, turn it on, one time, dine in the dark, cut your power, and then run that generator and make sure that it meets the needs of what you need in your home, okay? A couple of things I'm going to tell you. If you don't have a whole house generator, most likely you don't have a generator to run your air conditioner, okay? But I'm going to tell you something. I've lived in Florida since 1988. If I have a fan, just a blowing fan, not a ceiling fan, but if I have a blowing fan, remember window fans? Okay. If I have a window fan in the room, even when it's 90 degrees outside, close to my wife and I'm okay in 80-something degrees. And most of us would be okay with that. Do you know how many amps a window fan takes? Do you know what size generator it takes to do just a window fan? Not a lot. It can be a pretty small, inexpensive generator. For me and my house, I have a 3,700 square foot house in Pasco County, 2 stories. I ain't going upstairs. I'm staying downstairs. Heat rises, I stay downstairs on my first level. I have fans that I run an electric cord to my generator that supply power to the one thing I need more than anything, refrigerator and freezer. And I know a refrigerator and freezer, I can look at the back and it says it takes 22 amps. That's what I need to know how big my generator is, okay? I also need to know that if I have my generator out that door, and on that side of my house, my refrigerator is there, there's a little bit of electricity loss as it goes across the house. So just because it takes 22 amps doesn't mean that the generator is giving me enough power to run across the house to get to that thing. So I have to test it to make sure it works. But for me, and I've told my wife this, I ain't buying it, even though we are allowed to have a whole home generator. I'm not putting 30 grand into my house to have a whole home generator when what's that?
To use once.
To use once, but even worse is to pay the maintenance on it to make sure it's still running every year. and it doesn't quit. Now, I'm not saying you don't do that, community is. Just kidding. Don't go to Sam's and buy the biggest generator that you can't move for when you need 10 amps of electricity to run a couple of lights, your refrigerator, and a floor fan to keep you cool, because you're both going to lay in the same room and run a fan. You may need 2 fans. You're talking 8 amps. Okay?
Just get batteries now. I mean,
What's that?
EcoFlow batteries that will run.
Yeah, that's very true. You can do that.
And that is inside, so you don't have to keep it outside. I've got 2.
Yeah.
that
She's
run
saying the
that.
EcoFlow batteries, the big power cells, those are wonderful.
Yeah.
And if you have it generated as well through power, solar, or some
Right, well,
other
they all
mechanism,
come with, you can get a solar panel with them.
that's good. Those are great. And if you can afford that and that is the alternative for you, do it. I encourage you. If you have a generator, look at the generator you have and make sure, done in the dark, test it out, make sure it meets the needs. But if you got a really cheap generator and you think it's going to run your refrigerator, and you have a cord running all the way through the house to the back of the house, you may not be able to. So that's why you test it now. Because you don't want to find out in the middle of the disaster. Okay? And then the last thing I would say is, if you don't have a generator, because you A, can't afford it, or you're trying to figure out, should I get one, have the conversation with yourself first about what do I absolutely need to have for 5 days or 10 days at most, and maybe only one time in the time of my lifetime. What do I absolutely need to have in my house? Because you don't have to have your air conditioning running. You can suffer a little bit with the appropriate fans and moving air. But if you don't have one, and you've never tried to live through a summer without air conditioning in Florida, you probably need to make arrangements to go somewhere if you lose power. Because I will tell you, as someone who has lived here, I'm acclimated, I love the warm weather, there's a point at which you can't sleep, you can't do anything because you just steam. And the air doesn't move, and after a hurricane, it's 120% humidity. That's not actually possible, but it's 100% humidity, and it is insufferable, especially if you're medically dependent, and that would affect you in other ways. Okay? The last thing I would say is think about how those cords to that generator in a safe place outside your house, not in your garage, not in a covered setting, by your window, to where all the gas comes in your house. How can you put something in your window to run those cords out to that generator? If you have sliding glass doors on the back of your house, what can you do to put a strip in so the cords fit through, but you can still close the door, but put 2 little holes at the bottom, your cords can run through to your generator. I don't know if y'all have mosquitoes in this part of the town, but leaving your window open to run cords through your window isn't a real good, fun idea either. I have generated, I made a little plastic curtain that goes in, it's solid, and then holes where my cord slips into those holes, and then I pull the window all the way down to about 4 inches, that may be 4 inches, it's about 4 inches at the bottom of my window. The cords run out, my generator sits outside, and then I'm able to power my refrigerator and 2 box fans and one of those little stand ones that go this way and that way. What are this? And I have a family of 6. But that's how I do it. Because, hey, every now and then when you suffer through a hurricane, they need to see what it's like. Okay. There are cool things. I will tell you, I'm a Sam's guy. I go to Sam's, Costco has them too. But there's these cool things that are out there now that are dual fueled. So you can actually run both off of a propane tank that you use for your barbecue. And I will tell you, you can buy a 40-pound propane tank. You can't lift it, so you'll have to have somebody come and move it because they're big. But you can have one of those even delivered to your house, or if you're able to go access it, have a relationship where you can go get it, or somebody will bring it to you, where you can run your grill if you need to. Are y'all allowed to have grills? Yeah. Okay, good. Just want to make sure. But you can cook off your grill, because you can't cook in the house, you don't have power. You can cook off your grill, and you can run your generator off of a 40-pound propane tank, and it lasts for a good bit. Okay? So those are some alternatives for you. Sam sells those generators. I know that because last year I bought one of them. All right, any questions about power generators? And if we have some specific stuff right here, I'd love to talk to you about it. I talked about live wires, staying away from them. This is the biggest, I won't say it's the biggest loss of life. Actually moving water, people going into moving water is the number one loss of life. Not flooding to your house. That's not what kills most people. Most people die doing stupid stuff and trying to go through running water or trying to navigate water after a disaster. That's where most people die, and one of them is with power lines that are in water or power lines that people go and try to drive over or move from a pipe.
It only takes 6 inches
To move a car.
to drown.
So it only takes 6 inches. 6 inches of water, there's actually a mathematical, there's a number of how many how many foot-pounds of energy that 6 inches of water has on a car that is moving through water to pick it up, to move it down the road. Nobody, you may have the coolest truck, but you should not drive through water, especially if you don't have experience doing so. Just because you have a truck doesn't mean it ain't gonna pick up and float down the river with everything else, or down the street with everything else. Okay, I've talked about this. If you have a power line down, you are begged by the electricity companies to call immediately 911 when you see it. That's bullet point 4. They want you to call 911 when you see power lines down, whether it's on 41 or somewhere else close to your home or somewhere in the community. I know there's not power lines here. But when you do see them, wherever you are, call 911. It's that important to them. They want to know. And they will dispatch the power companies to go and meet that. You can call your electric company, but you should call 911 because it's that much of an importance, so they can put it through to get the police mobilized to it as well, to make sure no one else has access to it. All right. How many of you have pets? I do not want anybody reporting me. I don't want anybody reporting me. I do not recommend putting your cats in your suitcase. I'm not saying I haven't done it for somebody else's cats, but this baffles me. I mean, I have done a lot of disasters, okay? I've responded to people who are in great pain. I know the decision to leave your house when they tell you to leave is very hard. I will tell you, the number one reason people don't leave is because of their pets, okay? They're kids. They're just like a human, all those things. I understand it. I'm a dog guy, not a cat guy. Dog guy. I would never leave my pet behind. But that's not a good excuse because you didn't prepare for what you should do with that animal when a disaster occurs. Okay? Again, you live in an evacuation zone, a prominent evacuation zone. Have plans for your pets when you leave your house. Okay? No one's required by law to open their facility to you because you have a pet. The county may have the capability of the shelter to take pets. But when Bubba's dog is in that shelter, I'm trying to think of a name that's not like Bubba, and I can't, it's not coming to Mindy's dog. Is that a good way to do it? I'm just looking at a little dog over here to Bubba's big Rottweiler over here. End up in a shelter, it can be very uncomfortable when you have a bunch of dogs and cats running around in a shelter. And you need to be concerned about that. Okay? You should have some other alternative, and that should be a part of your plan when you evacuate. Does that make sense to everybody? Didn't shock anybody, right? Okay. Has anybody ever tried to put cats in a suitcase like that?
I have a question.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
During emergencies, are hotels and motels required to let you bring your pet?
No. They may allow you to bring your pet. They are not required to make you to bring your pet.
Doesn't the government usually say he is allowing pets in a hotel, which has happened?
I would tell you, do not plan on that. I would tell you, I don't know that, I would know that some of them may come out with an executive order. I don't know that, has anybody heard that happen in Florida? Because I didn't hear that happen.
They did during Debbie, we evacuated us.
That's good. I didn't know that. You have told me something new. Don't plan on that. Okay? I will tell you the process for executive order, something must have been big for him to make a statement on, because that takes a lot for him to do that. Don't count on it. You need to come up with some other alternative, and you should already have that plan. The reason they probably did that was because a whole bunch of people were screaming, "What are we doing with our pets?" What did you think you were going to do with them? You lived in a zone A. You should have had a plan for them. And I'm not shaming you for that. I'm telling you that's the reality of why we're having the conversation right now. What's your plan? Okay? All right. I talked to you about taking the photos of all your documents and stuff. I did want to say one more thing about that. Most of you are savvy enough with technology now that you probably know where most of your files are, or you have access to stuff. Many of us still keep that hard copy, which is good, but you need to know where you're holding them. I like to put them in one folder on a zip drive. I don't even have to take that. I don't have to take that with me anymore. You could open a Gmail account or whatever account you want, and you can drop all that into an account that sits in the cloud that you don't have to carry with you. You just have to ensure you know where it is so you can access it. And you can take pictures of all of it, upload it into that cloud so it's already there so that you can access it. And the most important thing, if you have living relatives that do not live with you in the house, is that you tell them how to access that if you have to evacuate your home. So that if for some reason you can't remember, you can't access it, they may be to access it from Georgia or Maine or wherever their family's from, or somebody that else has access to it, so they can get it to help you to get the information you need if you don't have internet access. Okay? We don't live in a cashless society, but we're pretty freaking close to it. I encourage you to be reasonable at taking cash out so that you have access to cash after a disaster. When you're evacuating, especially if you come back to an area that has no power, I encourage you to have access to cash. This has turned into a message that says, make sure you have cash. Everybody goes to the thing and gets $7,000 out of the ATM, and then the city has no cash left. So consider the others that are also having to prepare, and that the banks may not be able to fill those coffers right back up immediately. Just think about that process as to what you need to be able to access for evacuation, for other things. Most hotels, they'll still be able to take credit because they'll have generators, but you may need to take cash out. Just be reasonable in how you take that out. And be aware that if you wait till the last minute, somebody else took $7,000 out, I know, whatever the cap is, and everybody in the community goes and takes the cap out, their stuff, you don't have anything.
Small bills.
Small bills.
Because you go to places and
Sure.
you got $100 bill, the guy says that it's 2 sodas and a half-gallon milk. I don't have change.
You're right. You're right. I don't know how you do that. If you go to the ATM, it's hard to get it. So you have to be considerate about how it's going to come out of the machine to you. And then finding a way to get some small bills, it's a great, you're absolutely right. Sorry, don't have change. Yeah, but I only have $6. You said it was 10. I'll take your 10. Okay. The other thing is, and this goes to FEMA, so I don't want to get into too much of the FEMA, but insurance and stuff like that. My moron that was my insurance company wouldn't return a call. He sent everything in email. Now the funny part about that is it all went to my junk email. So I didn't have access. I didn't see it. You need to make sure if you are evacuating and if you have an insurance claim that you have access to the email that you gave them and that you're monitoring it. Because they will send something to you and say, all you have to do is fill out this, sign this, do this. And if you say, well, I didn't see that email, it's on you. You need to have a way to get to your email when you, if that's how they're communicating with you, and often that's what they do to cover their butts. I like insurance people. They just ticked me off recently. Just saying. All right. I'm almost done. Sorry if I'm going longer than you had anticipated. I have these as steps. It's not really that important as steps. It's just a way for me to put it to make it look like a cool PowerPoint. Life safety first. Always make sure that you have a snapshot of what's going on in your community so you know how to be safe. I talked about the gates, stuff like that. Always make sure that you are aware. And if you see a place that's blocked, make sure that you let emergency management or let emergency responders know, so that if somebody in your community is impacted, somebody has reported that down in your community so that EMS can get to people that may need it. As a community, I don't know, I'm in a CDD and in an HOA. That's how I live. I'm not sure how Del Webb does it in your community. But it's important that we help collectively to report damage for being able to recover it after the disaster. I feel like it's kind of my responsibility as a resident and a member of the CDD, because ultimately, if things go bad and we have to pay money because our insurance doesn't cover it or whatever, it's on me, because I'm the one who pays that bill for my CDD. So it's important that you have a strategy for how you take advantage, how you document all the damages in the community. If I'm on the HOA board, I'm asking my management company, how do we do this after the disaster? How are we making sure that all of our properties are back up and running and that insurance takes care of any of the damage that happens? That's one of the expectations I would have of my management company, and I would have that conversation between the HOA and the management company. Yes, sir.
How soon before a hurricane hits should you check with your insurance company to make sure everything is?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow. Make sure you are, actually that's a great point, thank you for saying it, because it is something I usually start with. You need to know what your damages are on your house, what your deductible is, and what your thresholds are. That is something you need to know now. Don't wait for the storm. If it is in place now and you paid your premium, it's in process. It doesn't go away unless you haven't paid that premium. But I encourage you, and I do it every May, to look at my policy. Actually, mine renews in March, so I'm lucky that, not lucky, I'm not lucky at all. In March, I have to look at that to renew. It would be harder if my renewal was in November, and I would look at it until May the next year, but it would be important that you look at it just before hurricane season. What are my thresholds? What are my deductibles? What risk am I taking if I don't have flood insurance? And I'm telling you in this community, if you don't have flood insurance, this is hard because it's money that you may not have or I don't have. I understand the risk reward. Just know what risk you're taking by not having flood insurance in this community. It's important. Just so you can be reasonable about it. That's all right. I'm willing to lose $100,000 on my house because no insurance is going to pay it if you don't have flood insurance. It is not required by law. It is in your policy. You are not covered for rising water or water that comes into your house if you don't have flood insurance. Okay? And FEMA can't assist you the way that they can someone who has a flood insurance policy. They can't give you cover that flood damage if you didn't have flood insurance. Because what you may not know is, unless you have an independent broker that has private insurance, the National Flood Insurance Program is actually funded through FEMA, and that money is contingent upon you having flood insurance on your house. Okay? That's how you get your flood insurance check, unless you have an addendum by your private insurance to have private flood insurance. Okay? I can go off on that for a long time. And I know a lot of people in North Carolina are struggling right now. All right. Check on everybody. Talk about debris. There are great people and organizations who can come out to the community if you need it. Be heavily communicative with emergency management even after the disaster. If one of your trees lands on your house and you can't do anything and you can't afford to move it, there are ways to ask for community-based organizations like Samaritan's Purse, the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, Team Rubicon, all great organizations that I work with every day. Some of them are my clients that will come in and they'll put a list of people on that registry and they will start going door to door to help people who can't get out. They target the vulnerable first, those that can't get out and remove it themselves, and they go in and help them to remove that stuff from their properties. But they need to know from you, and emergency management will kind of have a registry for people who are trapped inside the house or need to have stuff removed from their properties. One thing you need to know, government cannot come on your property and do anything on your property. They can come to your curb or your street, the edge of your street, to do a debris, to pick up trees and all that kind of stuff from the edge. They cannot come on your property, okay? It's not their fault, it's the law. They don't have rights to your private property. They don't even have rights to your community unless the community has signed a waiver and given them access into the community, and that's just as important. All right, and then daily update, just keeping the community up to date as to how things are going, in touch with emergency management. So now I'm giving you homework. Things that you're going to take away from this that you need to work on. I've already hit them, but I want to recap them. Number one, know your evacuation zone and know what flood zone you're in. You absolutely should do that. Hillsborough County has a really cool alert system that they will update you with weather alerts and important information. You can get that at the Hillsborough County Emergency Management website. It's actually on the link I have at the end of the presentation, so I'll send this to you, you'll have access to it. If all else fails, if you just can't wait to do it, you're going to sit there tonight, you just can't wait to do it, you just go to the Hillsborough County Emergency Management's website. It's a good website. Make sure, I will tell you a secret here. The food that is in this kit, if you bought your kit commercially, okay, the food that is in this kit will probably last 10 years. Which makes it suspect as to why it wouldn't last 10 years. However, some of us are well prepared, and we at one time bought that for our kit. And you probably bought some canned ravioli. I don't know if they have that anymore, but I love it. I'm just telling you. You may have ravioli in your pantry that's your hurricane kit. Check your product dates every hurricane season, or at the end of hurricane season. And if you can't eat it and you don't want to touch that stuff, don't throw it away. Check and make sure it's reasonable time frame. Send it to a food bank that can give it to somebody who wants to use it. Because Kevin is waiting for all the ravioli to come in. But check your expiration dates. Renew your kits. Any of you that have first aid kits, I'm the guy who says, there's my first aid kit, I need it in emergencies. And then my kids stub their toe and I'm like, I'm going to go to the first aid kit. Not the Band-Aids that are on the shelf in my pantry. I go to my first aid kit. Eventually I go in and go, where are all the Band-Aids going for my first aid kit? Make sure that your kits, the things that you're counting on, actually have it in it. And if you, during COVID, took your toilet paper out of your disaster kit, check to make sure you put it back in. All right. Photograph your property. I talked to you about taking pictures of the stuff inside your house. Very important. But also take pictures outside your house. Okay? And then the last thing is, I should have asked a little bit before, and Ron, I'm sorry. I should have asked you, sir, what the plan is for the community, so we could talk a little bit about what the community plan is. Because I don't know the Del Webb plan. I think it would be worthy of you all to maybe know what that plan is, if you don't already know what the plan is on how you're going to do, whether there's a door-to-door. And I think you would have the opportunity to do that as maybe in one of your homeowners association meetings, maybe one of your presentations that you have. You're just going to talk about it. And I'm not saying be mad at them that you don't know what it is. I'm just saying probably something you want to ask the question so we can talk about what we are doing as a community. How do we know that? How are we going to communicate that the gates are closed, et cetera, et cetera? Is that fair? Okay. Here are the links. Here are some of the links that you would have, and I'm open for any questions that you may have, the hard ones, the easy ones, and we're going to do I think we're going to do some giveaways in a second. All of these links are something that should be pertinent to you. I even have my information up there for you to reach out to, if you want to reach out to my company that can help you. I'm not trying to sell anything. I don't make money by talking to communities. That's just something I do because I'm interested in helping folks. My business, so I do tell you this part. My business is working with nonprofit organizations to understand how to navigate government to help leverage resources to help people. That's number one. Number two is I work in contract with government to help them to understand how to help communities by leveraging the good work of all the nonprofits that come in after a disaster to help them serve their community. That's my space. That's where I spend my days. I spend a lot of time in the government atmosphere, working on policy and stuff that helps to work on insurance policies, to work on the FEMA stuff that everybody wants to know about, all that stuff. That's the circle I live in to make it more effective for disaster survivors. But here's my information. If you want to know more, and I would encourage you, if you are a faith or community leader, if you're a part of a Rotary or one of the clubs, or you attend a church or you're a leader in the church, there are some really cool, I say they're really cool because I developed them. You can QR code, get your phone can take a picture of that QR code. It will link you to some courses about disaster resources that are independent study. You can take them online. They're actually pretty entertaining. We filmed them here in Tampa. My company developed them for the Salvation Army. And they're to help community-based organizations that don't have access to training for free. No sign up. You don't have to be all of a sudden become their top, volunteer or donor. None of that. It is just to get access to faith and community organizations to help them be prepared for disaster. Maybe you can learn from it, maybe not. Yes, ma'am.
How did you say you were going to get the presentation to us?
I'm going to send it out to, let me see, I'll give it to the management company to send out to everybody that's here. Hopefully, they have your information? They'll have it? Yeah, it'll come to you. Yep. It'll be in PDF form, and I know that probably everybody doesn't work in that space, but it'll be in PDF form, so you get to see it, and you can usually click on the link, and that will take you to all these resources. Okay? I encourage my pastor of my church, which is Bay Hope Church in North Tampa, in Carrollwood-ish, Northdale area. I encourage them to take this to help their leadership team, because most churches want to do something in disaster, but have no idea how to do it effectively. These courses will help them to do that, and it will help you to get to know more about emergency management if you're interested, especially from a big community like this. And then lastly, I'm sorry, I'll go back.
It's okay, I don't think I can get it this way.
We're gonna give away things,
Okay.
and then if anybody has questions,
Okay.
can we do that?
Yep.
Good.
On my website, on Rule 1 Consulting is my website. I have a site, it's called Storm Ready on that website, where we have all these tip sheets. Just to let you know, it's about wire safety, generator safety, how to navigate FEMA, how to deal with FEMA. Critical steps for faith leaders, packing stuff for your dogs, rip current safety, just some safety tip sheets if you want to use them. It's just helpful to have as a resource if you want them. Download them, you don't buy them or anything else. They're just there, it's free to anybody that wants to be disaster prepared. That's pretty much it. That's what we got.
Thank you, Kevin. We have plenty of water. I think we have plenty of water bottles. So anybody that would like a water bottle, these are compliments of the Salvation Army in Hillsborough County, and they sent them. And the Salvation Army in Hillsborough County loves South Shore Falls because many of you, some of you, and this year we would like even more, to come over to the public and ring the bell. Eileen does it every year. Stella did it last year for the very first time. It was wonderful. Do we have any other folks that are bell ringers coming? It's a great thing to do. You see your friends over there, and sometimes you shame them and they put money in there. So the Salvation Army in Hillsborough County is very thankful for this community and the support, the financial support that you provide. And so when I said to them, "And do you have anything that I can give away?" And they said, oh yes. For South Shore Falls, no problem. We've got stuff. So there's some stuff up here, water bottles, there's some flashlights. Come and get that. I have 7 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 of these kits. I wish we had 75, but we don't. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give them away.